Hey, how's it going, guys? So this is Lord Laverne, and let's continue the day game guide. Thank you very much to those supporting me. And I saw the previous video on the instant date, and it really went well. Thank you all. And my latest video as well about rock, like the rock band Quarteto de Nos, also getting popular. So thank you very much, guys. So let's just get right to it. Because and look at this text. So this is in Spanish, but I just said like, hey, they sell delicious ice cream. She said, sure. Then I confirmed that date, and then she says, let's do it. You know, it's all very simple stuff, and that's what you guys are gonna see with the guide. So suspended judgment, how to text your date to increase your chances on day 2 with concrete examples. My friends, let's continue with this cold approach series. In the previous week, we talked about overcoming approach anxiety, getting an awesome outfit that will raise your SMB, and what to say during the first 5 minutes, as well as what to say during the last 5 minutes of the interaction. This week we will cover how to text your date to have a high chance of meeting. And alright guys, so I will use texting primarily for logistics with 1 or 2 spikes thrown in if necessary. The main mottos are always assume attraction and move things forward. The concept of suspended judgment comes from the idea that the girl won't judge you based on the quality of your text, but rather on how you do on your day 1 and day 2, and you stick with logistics during texting. So this is the opposite from most coaches who get their students to obsess over texting to make things more complex and sell them texting products. So guys, this is so crucial. So what's going on is like, just use the text for logistics, and then maybe 1 or 2 value spikes, like for instance, oh, there's delicious ice cream or something like that. But don't do what everybody else is doing, where you purchase like 30 products on texting and it gets really complex and you try to do all this like very complicated stuff. Like, just focus on your day 1, use the texting for logistics, and then your day 2, guys. It's so important. It's so important. The logic that most guys miss, for most guys, getting a number is a way for them to show they're attractive, and will do endless amount of PUA tactics and paint them as weird. For instance, some guy will try to neg the girl or show them off at school to show off like cool, like, oh, I saw your nails, were they real? If you did a strong set during day 1, the girl will want to meet you. Texting is only a time bridge. So Mystery used to do all this like negs, and it worked when he was doing night game and stuff, but sometimes guys, we try to imitate him or imitate other coaches and try to do all these tactics and neg the girl and stuff like that, and it backfires, because like, it's sad to say, but like sometimes the guy approaches a girl, they go on an instant date, it works well, and then he's like, okay, I should show I'm attractive, and then he starts doing all this weird stuff on text, and then like there's only 2 outcomes. One, that girl thinks it's weird, and then she just never replies, and then people will try to sell you a product on how to get her to reply after messing up. Or 2, that girl gets turned on, quote unquote, because you were a dancing monkey, and then she's like, okay, cool, she already got that validation, quote unquote, from you, and then she never replies. The same outcome. And it's just unfortunate, because a lot of these coaches don't care. They keep selling you products and just making things more complex. Some coaches have taken advantage, and this is another concept called time bridge, and it's also very complex. It just means the time between meeting and not meeting, and so many people have their own theories on how this works, but their theories are always the same. You know, it's always make it more complex. Like, do all this complex stuff, you know, try to do multiple conversations, try to do multiple tactics. Like, it's way complex, and honestly, like, all that it accomplishes is that the girl gets bored with you and then never replies. So I'm basing it all on field experience. Field experience has taught me that if you did a solid set, the girl will think, I'd rather meet him and give my judgment there, as opposed to her judging you by texting ability. Use this to your advantage and use texting primarily for logistics. The main mottos are always assume attraction and move things forward. Yeah, like, you can just skip all this stuff that these guys are saying and just use it for logistics. Maybe 1 or 2 spikes and that's it. You know, like, keep it simple. If you want to be scientific about texting, make sure you keep it as simple as possible. If you do too much of the whole cocky and funny, your date will get annoyed and you increase your potential that she'll flake. And a lot of mainstream coaches do this, that they've adopted this theory of cocky and funny, and I think that can work, but it's just not necessary, you know? Like, when you're like doing all this cocky and funny stuff, like, or the other teachings of mainstream coaches, they always assume, oh, he's just this witty guy, you know, like he's just like the girls will say, okay, he's this dancing monkey and whatever, you know, like they'll forget it, and then you're making it more complex than it needs to be. Don't do weird teasing if you don't have to. And this is the other stuff, you know, like the guy will try to tease a girl and say, oh yeah, you, I don't know, they will compare them to animals, like you're a cat or something like that. And honestly, like, most of this doesn't make sense. If you're trying to move things forward, most of this just paints you as weird. Like, unfortunately, many coaches make money of teaching you texting lines. Most of them serve no purpose but to potentially creep your date off. If you see there's no point in teasing, don't do it. Also, if you think that teasing will, and this is what a natural guy told me, like a friend of mine in college, he told me, like, why are you doing all this stuff? Like, if you don't need to, don't do it. Also, if you think that teasing will make you come off as high value, you're probably overthinking. At times, your date doesn't care that much. She cares you come off as a cool and laid back guy. If she agrees to meet you, then this should be enough. Always assume attraction. So it's the idea as well that I've been talking about a lot, like, always assume attraction and just believe you're enough, and that's it. You don't need to endlessly self-improve or endlessly learn all these PUA tactics on texting and all this stuff. If there's no point, and natural guys told me that, and I've seen it with like very high value people. Do you think they have time to be like texting her like 24/7 witty lines or all this complex stuff to make her like them? Honestly, probably not. Like, they're probably busy with their life and they're just gonna do some low investment text like, okay, we'll meet and that's it. And guys might say, hey man, but what about the objections and stuff like that? But I've noticed that, at least with me, if your day one and your instant date is very solid, like, I get less objections. This is field experience, by the way. Like, I can't say it'll happen to all you guys, but to me, like, they just are like, yeah, I'll meet him. You know? Let's continue. Make sure you set up a concrete location, the time of the meeting, and the location is close to your place. I always meet my dates at a coffee shop or a sushi place on the same street as my house. The closer you meet her, the better. You need to make the date as concrete as possible. For instance, Jamba Juice at 4 p.m. in downtown Salt Lake City. So I was living in Salt Lake City, and I would just get my dates to meet me at Jamba Juice. Because it was like 1 block from my house, and that was it. Like, I didn't... And this I agree with, where if you do that day one and you do the instant date and then hang out, then it makes sense to like move around, especially if it's early morning. But if it's a day two, you should not be moving around at all. You should just be like, okay, I'll meet you at Jamba Juice at 4 p.m. and then straight back to your place, you know what I mean, or my place. You shouldn't be doing all this exaggerated stuff. And yeah, so this is what you should be focusing on. Instead of focusing on being attractive, you should just be focusing on concrete location, time of the meeting, and that the place is close to your house. Because I also seen guys that are like, well, I'm gonna meet her at this restaurant because she really likes it. I'm like, but that's so far away from your house. Like, how are you gonna get back? That you're making it harder for you. Like, you're stacking the deck against you. If you were playing cards, like, you're honestly stacking the deck against you. To just make it easy for you. Okay, always set your dates for the next day of the day or the day after. This is another very crucial thing. You should always set your date for the next day or the day after. Otherwise, the chance of meeting is scarce. For instance, if you approach her on Wednesday, your date should be on Thursday or Friday. If you approach her on Thursday, you should meet her on Friday or Saturday or even Monday. I would never agree to meet a date on Friday if I approach her on Monday. The chances of flaking are very high. So this is another mistake most guys make. And the coaches, it doesn't matter, man. Like, it doesn't matter, bro. Like, you're an attractive guy. Like she's gonna like leave everything she's doing to meet you. Like, that's not true at all. So what I always do is I meet the girl. Honestly, what I always do is I meet a girl on Wednesday, and then I'm like, okay, we can meet Thursday or Friday. And she's like, okay, I'll meet you on Friday. And then if she flakes, I meet her on Saturday, but that's it. Like, I don't make it complex, because otherwise, like, they forget about you real quick. Because there's a lot of guys, and I live with some hot girls as well, and there's a lot of guys also texting them and inviting them places. No, you can't. You need to move fast when it comes to this, because other people will just take her from you. Alright, let's continue. So this is what's so important. Set your dates for the next day or the day after. If you're setting your dates for 4 days, you're already lost. Like, it doesn't matter how good your game is. Like, most likely you're gonna lose. So make sure you confirm the date at midday. By advice of my students, I no longer confirm a date multiple times. Instead, I will text my date at noon. If we're meeting at 4 p.m. the same day, I will use a simple text. Hey, are we still good for 4 p.m.? Usually my date will say yes or hey, I forgot, but thanks for reminding me. Yes, I can meet you then. The day doesn't respond, she flaked on you and didn't plan on meeting you at all. So I actually field tested this with myself and my students. What I used to do is, so approach Wednesday with the instant date. First day off. Friday, I text her midday and I'm like, hey, are we still good? At 6 p.m. And then, like, here, she says, yes, meet you. And here, Wednesday. You see, guys, the evidence speaks for itself. She's like, yes, see you then. And actually, she wrote at 6 when we'll meet, you know? And that's it, guys. Like, don't make it more complex. Optional ideas. So guys, this is so crucial. And I'll repeat it again. So you approach her on Wednesday, you go on the instant date, you spend time with her, whatever, like, it increases your chances. Then on Thursday, you might text her like a value spike or something like that if needed, or nothing at all. But sometimes I will text something like, oh, hey, great meeting you, stuff like that. And then, like, on Friday, on midday, I just confirm. And usually, if my set has been strong, they say, yes, let's meet. So it's actually like a small time window. It's not, don't try to do what these guys are doing of time bridging and all this stuff. That, oh, but if your text is solid, you can get her to meet the week after and all this stuff. Like, I don't agree with that vision. I think it's just a very short opportunity, a short window for you to make all this happen. So optional ideas. This is something that I've learned and can help. So value spike. Send her a picture relating to activity you are both doing. Consider a value spike. For instance, if you're both going to a concert about punk music, send her a screenshot of the band that's playing. Since she'll be more engaged. Alternatively, you can send her a picture of something cool you're doing. Like, say you're going bowling. Just small detail that will work. So sometimes on first day, I just do a value spike where I'm like, hey, I'm bowling with some friends. And I just send her a picture. And then she say, oh, that's so cool. And then I'll just say, oh, okay, see you tomorrow. And stuff like that. That's it, guys. That's it. Like, I'm not overly texting, but I'm also haven't forgotten about her. I'll just do like value spike. That's it. If I see it's needed, you know, and also if I'm doing something cool, like, oh, I'm bowling with some friends, and then I'll just text her that, or a video, and then she'll just interact with that. And it's because it comes from Instagram and stuff like that. But don't feel like you always need to value spike, because that's also something that will hurt you. So optional, romantic spike. You send her a text that brings about a romantic context, and this is important. But actually, it depends on where you meet a girl. If it's online, you already have the romantic context. But if it's outside of online, you could add 1 or 2 touches. For instance, what I do is add a devil emoticon. This I field tested and has worked for me. Like, we'll have fun, or I have done this before, and it has worked. Though if you could do too forceful or too sexual, it can backfire. Or we'll have a romantic evening, or something like that. You know, like. But I do believe there exists a romantic context, and you can entice this romantic context by saying that, oh, like, there's this very, like, romantic restaurant or something like that. But honestly, guys, because I know some of you guys will overthink it, overcomplicate it. And what actually works is just one text, like playful, like, hey, we'll have fun or something like that. Well, and you guys will say, hey, man, but this doesn't sound sexy, or this doesn't sound edgy. You know, how are you building attraction? You know, that, like, what matters is that she's meeting you. Like, it doesn't really matter that you're doing all this complicated stuff. Conclusion: the vast majority of coaches get too caught up with making this complex series. Just one small part, like the time reach. You could make a series on this. However, it would take too much time and distract you from your goals.